Welcome to The Explainer. So glad you're here. We live in this crazy, hyper-connected world, right? But honestly, so many of us feel more isolated than ever. Today, we're going to unpack some incredibly profound ancient wisdom on building deep, meaningful connections. We're looking at a literal blueprint for true friendship, drawn straight from biblical texts and commentaries. Let's figure out what it actually takes to build a sacred bond of fellowship. So I want to kick things off with a pretty provocative question. Do you have true friends or just a lot of companions? Seriously, think about that for a second. In our modern culture, it is so easy to equate popularity, follower counts, likes, casual acquaintances, with authentic connection. But as we're going to see, the source material draws a massive, life-altering distinction between a crowded room full of companions and the unbelievably rare gift of a true friend.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, the illusion of companions. Second, the power of influence. Third, iron sharpens iron. Fourth, faithful wounds. And finally, number 5, the ultimate act of love.
Okay, let's jump right into part 1, the illusion of companions, and why quality always beats quantity in relationships.
The foundation for all of this really starts with Proverbs 18:24. It says, "A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." It's a really stark contrast, isn't it? It's basically a warning. Having a massive entourage might actually lead to your downfall. But finding that one, rare, fiercely loyal ally, that is what truly sustains you.
To really grasp what's going on here, we have to define what companions actually are. In this context, companionship is just superficial popularity. It's a fair-weather association. Look, having a lot of companions can be fun. It's great for your pride when times are good. But the commentary points out a fatal flaw. These relationships have zero genuine commitment. They only exist for the good times. The second the stormy weather hits, those associations just evaporate.
So you can see the difference pretty clearly here. On one hand, you've got many companions. They're fair weather, they're superficial, and they are totally absent the moment hardship strikes. On the other hand, you have a friend who sticks. The text says this kind of friend can actually be closer and more loyal than your own blood family. Why? Because true friends still act like friends even when it costs them something. They don't just bail when the fun stops.
The commentary brings up a perfect biblical anecdote for this, the story of the prodigal son in Luke 15. You probably know it. This young guy is wasting his inheritance on this wild, raucous lifestyle, and he's surrounded by a massive circle of these so-called companions. But literally the exact second his wealth vanishes and he goes broke, every single one of those party mates vanishes too. He's left totally alone, feeding pigs just to survive. That is the devastating reality of relying on fair-weather companions.
Moving on to Section 2, the power of influence, and why choosing who we brush up against is so absolutely crucial.
Check out Proverbs 13:20. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. The big takeaway here, friendship is never neutral. It's just not. The people you spend your time with are actively shaping your character and your future. You inevitably absorb the traits of the people closest to you.
And we see this echoed right in the New Testament too. 1 Corinthians 15:33 warns, "Bad company ruins good morals." It doesn't get much clearer than that. True friendship powerfully alters your trajectory in life. That means if you carelessly choose the wrong friends, it's inevitably going to lead to disaster and ruin your character.
It's a pretty direct dichotomy. Walking with the wise naturally pulls you towards self-improvement and greater godliness. But being a companion of fools, that drags you right down into sin, disaster, and harm. Who we deliberately align ourselves with dictates our destination. It literally determines whether we're going to grow or whether we're going to suffer.
All right, Section 3, iron sharpens iron, and why friction is actually a necessity for growth. Listen to the physical reality behind Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. Think about that for a second. To sharpen a piece of steel, you have to use a similar piece of metal. But here is the catch. Sharpening requires scraping. It requires two unyielding materials grinding against each other to remove the rough spots and actually shape the edge.
The commentary unpacks this metaphor so beautifully by introducing this idea of constructive conflict. It's this concept of bumping into one another through interactions, through challenges, through asking the hard questions to refine each other's character. If you have close friends who never challenge you, who never question your decisions, who never bump into you, well, frankly, you're both liable to remain completely dull.
So how does this actually play out? Well, a dull relationship is totally unchallenged. It's stagnant and there's zero friction. But a sharp relationship? That embraces constructive conflict for mutual refinement. We see this modeled all over the place in incredible biblical friendships. Think about the mentoring relationship between Paul and Timothy, or that incredibly deep bond between David and Jonathan. Those dynamic friendships relied heavily on mutual sharpening. They were constantly challenging each other to greater faith and accountability.
Which brings us to Section 4, Faithful Wounds, Earnest Counsel. This is all about embracing hard truths from the people who actually care about you.
Look at this incredible quote from Proverbs 27:6. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. I mean, wow, this completely redefines how we view feedback. A true friend will actually risk the safety of your relationship to tell you a hard truth. They're willing to wound your pride to save your soul. An enemy, though, an enemy will just cover you in deceitful flattery. They'll give you those profuse kisses that make you feel amazing right up until you walk off a cliff.
The reality is, true friends give earnest counsel, and yeah, it might sting at first. It acts as a faithful wound. This whole biblical concept of speaking truth in love is the very thing that prevents us from clinging to our own foolish errors. It's like a surgical strike against our flaws, done by someone we know for a fact has our absolute best interests at heart. That's totally different from the sweet, deceptive lies of an enemy who couldn't care less about your growth.
And what actually happens when we accept that kind of feedback? Well, Proverbs 27:9 notes that the sweetness of a friend comes from their earnest counsel, which gladdens the heart. When we actually have the humility to accept a faithful wound, it completely transforms. It stops being this painful sting and becomes a profound sweetness. It brings gladness because we suddenly realize just how deeply we are loved and protected by that friend.
Okay, let's move to our final section, number 5, the ultimate act of love, where we are redefining sacrifice. You've probably heard this famous verse from John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Now, when we read that, our minds almost always jump to, physical martyrdom, jumping on a grenade, stepping in front of a bus for someone. And sure, that's a valid interpretation, especially considering what Jesus was about to do on the cross. But the commentary points out that the daily application of this might look quite a bit different than we think.
The commentary makes this brilliant point. Laying down your life isn't just about dying. It's a moment-by-moment attitude of humility and daily service. Christian love isn't meant to be saved up in a jar, just waiting for some grand, heroic, physical gesture that honestly may never even happen. Laying down your life is an attitude. It's something you carry into every single interaction.
So how do we actually do that in real life? Here are the steps for everyday sacrifice. Step 1, cultivate humility. Think of Jesus washing the disciples' feet in John 13. He took on a profoundly dirty, lowly job to set the ultimate model for humble service. Step 2, engage in daily service. Look for the small, everyday ways to put others first. And Step 3, maintain a moment-by-moment attitude. True friendship is built by consistently abiding in love. It's giving up your time, your preferences, and your ego for the sake of your friend every single day.
We're wrapping up this explainer with a final actionable mandate from Luke 6:31. And as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. You've got the blueprint now. You know the huge difference between a fair-weather companion and a true friend. You know why you need to be sharpened, the immense value of a faithful wound, and the daily sacrifice that's required. So the question I'm leaving you with is this. Instead of just looking around for a friend who fits this incredible description, are you willing to go out and actually be this kind of friend as someone else today? Think about it. Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and keep learning.